Okay, this video goes out to Ramen Llama. He asked about Suite 3 on the Bounty of Blood soundtrack, and so this is just a breakdown of this track. So first to explain how the music system works in Borderlands is we have all of these various layers, and so I need to output everything onto these final groups. And then these groups is what we batch export so that we have all the individual stems inside WYs. And so this is how I do all the routing to make that happen. Something to note is that as I go through here, the individual outputs on these various tracks are all, let me get the bottom pane here. I never actually use this while I'm working. I use a mix console in a separate window, but this will show you some of what I'm talking about here. So more and her, go to our outputs. Where are we? Over here. So does not display the output. I forgot. That's right. This window doesn't do that yet. Okay. Anyways, Morin's, these are all outputting, I believe, to the aux stem. So if I were to hit play, you will see here, we've got the aux. And this is a mixture of these Morin, her recordings that are just me playing very lightly at the bridge of the Morin her to get that kind of raspy echoing. And then one of these I'm tapping the string. What is that? I think it's this one. So here I'm just tapping the string, just tapping. And then over here I have a volume curve. This is part of what I'm doing throughout the whole piece to kind of blend these together. So if we were to solo, this is, you know, one of the ambient tones. We have another layer here. And here you hear me sliding my finger kind of like up and down the more and her a little bit to, you know, get that pitch variation over time. Yeah, here are a whole bunch of tracks I didn't clean up. Let's get rid of those. Okay, and then let's get these aux tracks going again. So these are in here so that when the music system breaks down to just the most basic single layer that's playing, we've always just got this nice little pretty ambient sitting in the background. And none of these things actually will get in the way of the larger mix or the larger arrangement. And then here to show you, let me pull over. Oops. Let's redo that. Sorry about that. I hit undo. So let's pull over the mix console here so we can see what's going on. So as you see, I've got this group of Morin drones, and they're all running through here. This is probably a bit wasteful, but I was working pretty quick through this project, so you'll see all these instances of Pro C are they're basically the same patch. I would have probably cleaned this up a bit more, but since my computer can do it, I just, you know, work quick, work sloppy. So here, you'll see this is just where the automation has these different layers playing together. And then you'll see on many of these, not all exactly the same EQ, but pretty similar. And so some of these just needed a little bit different EQ from the way I decided to blend them. But as you see, there's nothing really all that drastic, just getting rid of low end and whatnot. But then if I go over to the Morin drones, here's the group track. And then you can see here that I've got a send running, and this send is running pre. So I can control the dry versus wet if I wanted to. Although if I remember correctly, I think it's just ended up keeping this 100% wet throughout the whole track. So what are we doing here? After they all feed into this, and you'll notice I'm not really doing any panning or anything. I probably could have, but for whatever reason I didn't. This is a plugin called Tubemodulator. It's a $29 plugin from Audio Ready. I love it. As you see, I've got the mix at 100%, and we're slowly panning left and right. And then we also have, over here, our chorus vibe also running at a pretty high rate. So I'll just hit play, and we'll take a listen through, and then I'll just turn all of these off. So this is going out to the reverb. So if I just turn that off. And I lied. There is automation on the dry. So let's see if I can get the... I'm up here a little bit higher. So here's just what the raw recording sounds like. And these are several different layers playing right now, and without EQ, and you see why I cut off a bunch of low end. So it's not a cello, it's just the more in her. It's tuned much lower than it usually is. And now we'll just start turning on, and the reverb set. Here, we'll keep the reverb off so you can hear it better. So as I turn on, here's Tubemodulator. See how that immediately makes it just so much more interesting. Natural. And now we've got that sweeping frequency in the background, and with the panning as well. It also just takes a lot of the top end off of it. So rather than having to use an EQ to do that, it's all happening inside the plugin. And you'll see I have the mode set to panner over here. Then we add a little bit of EQ, or do we? We do not. So we do not need that enabled. And then do we have any multi-band compression? Yes, we do. But these, you see these thresholds. My loudness is actually a little quiet in this piece, but that's just taping, I should say, tapering out peaks and or cutting off peaks and whatnot. The reverb is running pre-send, so we'll just jump over here. So I'll show you the reverb settings on that. So where are we over here? Reverb ambience. Valhalla vintage verb. Then you see I have it set long, 14 seconds. I started off with the preset core space, and I don't remember what I changed here at all, but I eventually ended up over here with this result. So we've got the reverb plugin, and then in series after the reverb, see, look at this drastic EQ. So what I'm basically doing here is I'm taking out this really resonant 200 hertz, because that'll occupy a bunch of space. You know, if I bring this up, you know, if that was the only thing playing, sure. But there's a lot of stuff blending in here. So this is getting rid of this space here, so we're not really hogging up that space and leaving it open for things like the electric bass guitar and so forth. And then this brings airiness up over the top, whatever, but it also will help amplify any, you know, frequency sweeping happening up there, which will, you know, help those, just kind of help add to the wash. And so that's the aux layer running, just to give you an example. Now we have that quartet, I believe, playing. Right here. So I have them running through the vocal defined. So we have all the just kind of this interesting backwash to everything. And you'll recognize the really pretty piano part over here. So one of the other things that's kind of interesting about this track is the pizzicato. And this, let's see, let's see if I can find that. Find selected pool. And this is Quartet Pitch 2 octaves down. You know what? I actually do not remember where I was keeping these. There we go. Let me just play you what the original, what was this thing? Quartet Pizzicato, 2 octave down. So these are all the edits I made from the raw recordings that were sent back to us. And where am I missing it? Here we go. Here it is. So here, this is the, you know, recorded this in 96. So this is actually, this little clip is that entire bass pizzicato part. And then with it 2 downs. And it sounds like this, 3 octaves down. You know, and these are all working with the original 96 kilohertz. And this is the different pizzicato loop that I cut out of the original source. But this right here, or I'm sorry, this is actually the source for this. Now, if we wanted to check out this without all the effects on it, and then you'll see here, I've got sending out the reverb, it's sending out to Echo Boy. I believe this is a sidechain. Yeah, this is a sidechain for the combat section. And then these are all of the inserts that are running. And let's just turn these off. And listen to just the, here's the raw clips. Now we still have the sensor. Oh, here, I'll turn these off too. And I pitch bended this further down inside the session, so yeah. So this is just super pitch down for that 96 kilohertz, but it's just that original sound from before. So if I start looping this, now let's start showing what we're doing here. So we've got a compressor. That's going to bring it up, kind of squishes it, because I really wanted these things to kind of be just big and expansive. And then got a little bit of not a little bit, shit ton of high-end boost over here, because a lot of these are real dirty and noisy, and you know, I really wanted that kind of grit up there. You know, because then what I ended up doing is taking all of that high-end fuzz and everything and running it through a reverb. So, and this is our pre-reverb, so we just, as you can hear, it's just adding a little bit of space. It's pretty low in the mix, 23%. But you can hear just gives it a little bit of space, like almost like these guys were in a bigger room before I started treating them. And then this is the one plugin adding the most amount of character, just Filter Freak. And what I have is I have a threshold, and you'll see that this sweeps down afterwards. So what this ends up having the effect of doing is kind of giving us like right there. So as they fall down in volume, there we get those kind of little sweeps. And then one of the things I like doing is using the glue to just really just destroy the sound. And I really wanted that pumping, just ginormous, like it's just sucking itself out when it starts playing. So you see here, it's really, really aggressive. This is being used as an effect. This is not a tasteful application of compression. And then lastly, to show you here, I use the stock compressor inside Cubase to set up sidechaining. So this is for a combat section where I have other distorted versions of this same pizzicato cutting through into this natural one, and so this kind of gives them a, one gets out of the way of the other whenever they play. And that's, did I have this enabled? Because I did. I think this is just set to, yeah, see how screwed up my gain staging is? But that's okay, because I wanted all the noise on this one. So, if we were to play that in context with the mix, get that kind of nice woody, airy. And some of these, not these, might be more in the combat section, but sometimes I'll get it here and transpose them just directly from the data here. But other than that, you'll see these are all just little edit selections I made. And often what I do is I'll make the edit and then, kind of drag the clip around. And you see there? See, that's kind of interesting right there, actually. And then if I was like that doesn't quite fit. Change it down a few steps. There we are. Now I've got it right on the root. And that's just what I did with that recording. Just kept chopping, and then placing them in appropriate places. And that's also how I created the combat, these effects with the bass over here. So this is kind of massive. It's huge. Kind of lurking. And then the taiko, this is actually a good example. The taiko, better get this guy open here. Where are you? It's almost off my screen. So here's an example. So watch what happens when the taiko hits. This is the signal from the taiko. So you see, it's actually still playing these with the rhythmic, so if I were just show this. Creates this cool little kind of lurchy beat, right? But it's also sitting in the sub range. So make sure that I have room. That's about 20 dB of reduction whenever the taiko hits. So that way, we don't have a bunch of clashing bass frequencies. Now, as you can see, building all this stuff pieced together just bit by bit is how we end up with this kind of complexity. I didn't have any of this in mind when I started writing. This is all just experimentation and then seeing where it leads me. So again, these blue tracks, this is all the More and Her stuff. And I believe this actually is the acoustic guitar. No, it's not. Okay. So here, this is just one of the tracks. This is during that whole kind of trains coming section. And down here this is the bowed acoustic guitar. And you can see here I duplicated this from a previous track because I wanted all the settings just to start with, and then I didn't bother renaming because I'm the only person who sees this. So this, let's pull up what's going on here. So here's what the raw without reverb. Here's what the raw recording of me playing guitar. And I did tune the guitar. So I tuned the guitar. I can't remember what I tuned it to. But it's tuned to some kind of strange... Actually, you know what? I think it's just tuned to a straight minor chord. So I could play it almost like a dobro. It's really not that pretty. So I had it tuned to that, and then I would start moving my hands around on the fretboard to change the pitch. there's just a cheap, quick 12 octave down. It just changes the whole kind of... Just crossfade back into where it was. And when I played this part, I did have all these sends on and everything. You know, so there was a little bit of lag. I just tried to ignore it and listen to the dry signal. Oh yeah, you probably want to see what's going on here. So this is basically just a clipper distortion. So it's just one module out of the Newfangled Audio mastering. And I like to use this just as kind of a quick drive. As you can see here, I'm giving it a lot of drive actually. But this, geez, that's awful. Really sits there and dirties it up, and also just destroys it. I just really was kind of intentionally doing that. But here we'll start to use Prime B to take out some of that, but it's still pretty awful, right? And then Pro R, individual instance. So now you can hear this is a big part of where the kind of like epicness to is coming. And I did remember to turn on this ambient. And this is that same long 14-second reverb that the Morinhers are running through. And then finally, I've fixing all of my destruction here. And this is a terrible, terrible, terrible example of gain staging. But it's playing so far back in the mix and everything, it's kind of fine. And I wasn't really getting any unpleasant, nasty distortion. So it all worked out. But like I said, you know, if this wasn't really quick in-game soundtrack work, I probably would take more time with this. But I think I wrote all this. I think this section, anyway, this ambient section was probably 2-3 days. 2 days, 2.5 days of writing, something like that. Anyways, just to give you a sense of kind of how quick you have to work through these individual elements. So again, you wanted to hear about the piano. So here we have the piano part, and this is what piano? I want to say that this is a stock contact piano. No, it is not. It is the Gentleman. So here you can see here, and I want to say, you know, and I left all of the kind of things like resonance and pedal in there going, but it does not look like, I don't think it did any velocity scaling inside this. And this is it. It's just, you know, just live playing in. And I wanted to just leave the sustain pedal on this whole thing and just let all those voices stack up. Because I wanted that after ring where they're all kind of they're harmonizing against each other to create those kind of noisy resonances in the background. And it's you know, mostly built on an E major chord here, and throwing in it just accidentals and stuff just to give it that kind of sleepy feel to it. And then down here we have the taiko drums. So if I go back over here, and this is Storm Drum 3. And I loaded up, you see here, individual taiko drums, I think, right? Yeah. So, you know, I would load up drums, delete them when they're not working, and kind of go through this until I found which ones were working for this piece. I don't know a whole lot about taiko ensembles, you know, other than, you know, it always sounds better when you individually layer if you can take the time. And this is one of the early things I experimented with, both in the first concept of the cinematic and everything. So that's the other thing to keep in mind here, is that I found something that works and maybe I adjust it a little bit, but then I keep building on it with each additional project so that it's saving me a lot of time. Just playing that in, and then I may have done, you know, a little bit of editing here with the cursor. And but one of the big things that are making these taikos sound huge is, of course, the insert chain on them. And there's not a whole lot in this insert chain because they're already recorded in a space, so I don't, you know, necessarily need to add. Now let me see, let me make sure I don't have any additional inserts on them, because I may, and I don't want to skip over that and give you a false impression. Okay, no, this does not have anything on the inserts. So here you'll see, you know, I'm adding, or the threshold's pretty low. I'm adding some gain. It's 100% wet, so it's really gonna, you know, suck things out when it hits hard. And then you see that we have about 8 dB of gain reduction on that transient that came through. And so this is doing a lot to kind of help squish them down and whatnot. And then the other thing, nope, wrong channel. There we go. And then what you'll see here is I'm taking, again, the 200 out of this. I want them to be a little bit deeper, just to give them that kind of huge cinematic, really deep low-end rumble. So I have that boosted here a little bit. But if I didn't take that 200 out, I'll show you what that would sound like. If we disable that. Let's go over here. This is a better example. In case that's hard to notice the difference. See how much that kind of just deeper they suddenly sound by taking a lot of that kind of room resonant area for these big drums out. Just makes them sound really just super deep. And it's not that complicated, just 2 plugins. Okay, we went over the piano. These are like aleatoric brass effects and stuff like that. I made a note for myself over here. Actually, let me turn off loop. I think it's just noting this is running to like either ambient perk small. I don't know. I guess this note made sense to me at the time. And that's what we got going on. These guys are also running into that ambient reverb I showed earlier that have the 14-second delay on it. So it's all, this is all entering into that whole wash. And then this is this long video is the key switch saying, you know, what bank of sounds to load up. And this is Symphonic Shadows, I want to say, from ADO. Let's find out. Yep. Symphonic Shadows wins. The Goblins is the key switch that's selecting this one. Let's see, what else? And then we've got the more on her. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. See? I don't name these things, so I don't know. Now, where's the bass guitar? Here it is. So this is me just playing bass guitar. Let's just run through this chain. There's my tuner. Gotta make sure we're in tune. And then I actually just wanted just a really quick amp sim. So I just loaded the stock one just so I could kind of get something going. Although in the past I think I've reached to like Trash 2, things like that. I could use Guitar Rig, I have it, but you know, all I really wanted was just put it on a cab. I just didn't want to do really anything other than that. And as you can see here, this is all I'm doing. It's just the bass amp. Not quite as DI sounding. And if I take the effects, this is just running through Echo Boy. That's the same as a bunch of other instruments that are running through that Echo. And so this is just what the bass stock sounds like coming DI. It's a Carvin. It's I forget the actual specs, but it's a Carvin bass I ordered, and it's like, I don't know, 900, 1100, something like that. It has the active pickups in it. Or one active, one passive, and then with the blending electronics, so you can kind of blend them. So these are just onboard control blends to get this sound. And then you can see some of my bad playing and stuff. I did some editing to save it. So we got the bass amp going here. Let's go ahead and loop that while I'm talking. So then we have this EQ. And I made one of these bands active just because I was just getting a bunch of resonance up here that was really just irritating me. And so I was just trying to kind of crush it and make that easily, which brought out a little bit more of the thump of the finger. And then again, here's that newfangled saturate with a bit calmer of a drive there. So it's basically just bringing the level up a little bit, but it is adding a little bit of warmth. And then we've got the glue bus compressor here. And this is not quite as aggressive as the other examples. Just using it so that some of the resonance to come through and not, because I just wanted this to pick up the full frequency range. So if I really had kind of this thumpy thing enter, rather than dirtying up the full mix, I just kind of had it just suck out, basically. And then finally, we have a Pro MB, which is just my final little control on some of the resonances and everything. So this is just kind of rebalances things out a little bit, but I wanted it to be a little responsive, so if I'm playing really quiet, we still have this low end, but if I playing up higher on the fretboard and whatnot, you know, if it gets a little bit louder, then I'm just making sure I'm not kind of invading the rest of the mix too much. But this is all really kind of coarse stuff. This is not a very elegant processing chain. And then there's that Taika with the super low stuff. Now, the thing is, in the game of the system, I don't know, it might perk small and bass. Or maybe aux and bass. Perk kick. Oh, they're the low ones. Chord. There's the piano. Piano. Right by it. I must have gone right by it. Oh. Duh. Here. That's just kind of a chord change I've always been fond of. Just added a lot of mystery, and yeah, it's weird, almost like a jazz trio thing, even though it's not really jazz at all. And let's see, I know that there's melodic Kerr in here somewhere. here it is, over here. And then here's some of the melodic stuff. And here's the big thing to know. It's gonna take a little second to load the plugin. Here we go. Oh. Yeah, I don't have the license for this now. Melodyne is in heavy use, so you're hearing Melodyne, you're not hearing just the raw melody. From here, I did some stereo separation. Identical waveform, just transpose an octave. So I have these so that I don't have to mess with, you know, doing automation and panning and stuff. And then you can just see these are all fine-tune adjustments I do after I record all these parts and everything. I got to kind of rebalance them. And when I have this much music, what is it, 18-bit? How long was this thing over here by the end of the combat clips? Yeah, it was like 18, 17, 16 minutes of music or something. So working fast, trying to separate all the more and her melodies into separate tracks. Trying to do panning stuff with automation. It just becomes a real pain working with it. And those are all the elements. So yeah, I think that covers most of it. Hopefully that gives you some stuff to dig into, and that this was useful and didn't run too long. It's the first one of these I've done. So that's it. Bye.